Oh, hello again. Well, it's absolutely freezing today, but I'm back out in the garage and I've redone this jig and hole to suit the 1/2 inch router that I brought and the new guide bush on it. I've redone the calculations just to take account of the slightly different size of the guide bush. I don't think you need to see me do all of that again, but I'll just show you how well it worked. So here we go. There goes the dowel nicely into the hole. It's just slack enough that I don't think we'll need to chamfer the end of the dowel or the entrance to the hole, which I was thinking of doing if I made it a really tight fit, but I don't think that's really what's needed. You want a sort of relatively relaxed fit. There's probably about 1/4 mil of clearance there, which I think is fine. So we'll try it with just the plain ended dowels and just leaving the hole with no chamfer around the edge. Another little issue I've discovered is that this bit, which I brought because it's got the depth to cut those holes right down into that thick board, unfortunately, even when this new router is raised fully up, the bit protrudes out of the bottom. So what I'm going to have to do is cut all those holes in 2 stages, one with this shorter bit that's in there that came with the router, and then swap over to the longer bit, which is a bit of a pain, but there you go. One thing I am going to have to do as well is use this jig making jig. This is the final hole that made that correct size one last time to make myself a final version of the jig, because I need it on a bigger bit of board so I've got more space to get my clamps on without interfering with the base of the router. Actually, I was a bit too pessimistic, look, because if I set that router bit back in the collet and raise the router up to its highest setting, then in actual fact the thickness of the jig means that that bit won't be touching the plywood until I start to plunge. So actually I think that'll be alright. So now I can go ahead and cut myself a nice strip of MDF, nice and wide, so I've got plenty of space to put the clamps on without interfering with the router when I use it as a jig. And then I'll cut the final jig hole right in the middle of it, so I've got bags of choice about where to put my clamps without interfering with anything. So there we are, that's going to be the board for our jig. I've marked the centre of my jig board and lined that up with the centre lines where I cut this original hole. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut the final hole for the final jig. Of course, I've carried out a final test of that final jig, and yeah, that all looks good. So I think we can go on to cutting the holes in the actual board itself. I've had a bit of a look online, and it looks like most people are recommending a spacing of about 6 inches for these peg holes. So I've marked this out. Obviously, it's quite important that the holes are evenly spaced. Should be able to climb it something like this. So hopefully that's how it'll work. So yeah, there we go. I've marked out 6 inch intervals here. So these centres give us the centre mark for our edge holes, and these ones in the middle give us the centre for the middle holes. They're all in sort of a pattern of 5, like 5 on a dice. I'll set this depth stop on the router to stop the bit around about 8 mil short of the back of the board. Righto, let's go ahead and cut them. there's certainly a lot of holes to drill. It's definitely time for some tea. Well, that's all for now. If you enjoyed it, press like. Subscribe if you want to see some more. And ring the bell to be notified when we upload something new.